Second house, used to be. They're the ones that pay the use there. And not the Right. Give them some extra.
It's all apart. That club was nice today, right? So
they must have been laughing there. Sorry.
Whoever super on still. What do you?
10 seconds.
Tell me what's happening You're on. Just turn it up. Oh, right. Welcome everyone to the city council meeting on January 13th. This is the Clinton City Council meeting at City Hall. And we will begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'll have an invocation by Spencer Harvey.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we could gather here today in our council's chambers to talk about the needs and direction of the city. We're grateful for those in attendance and for those listening online and for all those in our community. We ask thee to be with us, and we are grateful, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Can you get one of our friends to close those doors? Oh, does she just yeah. All right, Mike Marie Dolan and the mayor, and we'll now have a roll call vote from city council starting. Not a vote, just a roll call.
Aaron Larson, Spencer Irving, Dean Searle, Chris Hansen.
All right, so we're beginning with a special ceremony. This is an award for Captain Holly Smith, and we'll have Chief Jason Wilson come up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members, City Manager, Trevor Cahoon. I'm gonna do this a little different today. I always like to keep my men and women guessing when we do a presentation. So I'm gonna have every firefighter that's here to support Holly come up. You're gonna go on a half moon. Deputy Chief Guard is here facing this way, facing council, yep. You just kind of back up and go half moon. Perfect. Now I'm gonna ask Captain Smith to come up. I'm gonna put Cassie Smith right here in the middle. Yeah, cover the gap, because we want you to know that everyone behind you supports you. So, Mayor and Council, I want you to know, as Holly Smith, Captain Smith on B shift, I want you to know you have a phenomenal employee and a great asset to Clinton City. She's the longest tenured captain right now for Clinton City, and she is my favorite captain on the department. Congratulations to Captain Smith of the Clinton Fire Department for completing all the rigorous tasks required to earn the Utah Managing Fire Officer Designation Award. This achievement reflects your dedication to professional growth, leadership excellence, and service to our community. Your commitment to advancing your skills and supporting your team sets a high standard within the department. We are proud to recognize this significant accomplishment. Well done, Captain Smith. Your hard work and leadership continue to strengthen Clinton Fire in the community we serve. So first round of applause. I want to tell you how Captain Smith got to this great achievement. So she had to have Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire Instructor 1, and Fire Officer 1. She had to have 3 to 5 years as a company officer in a supervisory role. She's had all those. She had to complete Fire Officer 2, Company Officer Leadership courses, management and administrative decision-making training. She had to complete human resource and personnel training, conflict resolution, performance evaluation, and disciplinary process. On the ops and incident management side, she had to complete ICS 300 mandatory, ICS 400, which is sometimes required, but she has a tactical decision-making training, prevention, community risk reduction, basic fire prevention and inspection courses, community risk assessment principles. I am very blessed as the chief officer for Clinton Fire to have Captain Smith as one of my company officers. She's one of my go-to people, and not a lot of people have achieved this fire officer designation award. Her husband is here. He Battalion Chief Smith used to work for Clinton. He also got the award from Farmington. So I'm not recognizing him, but what a great support he was to Captain Smith. So I think that deserves a big round of applause for Captain. So I'm gonna give this Utah Commission Fire Officer Designation, Captain Smith, and I'm gonna have her husband pin her pin on her. Well done. Yeah.
Yeah, parts these so that everyone can see in the audience.
So if you'll shake the ops guys first, shake all their hands, and then Holly really wanted to talk to you. She would like to speak.
Chief, I already asked her, she said no.
I have an allergy to yelling and microphones.
Thank you.
All right, Captain Smith, can we come down and take a picture of you? That's it.
Where did it fall?
Well, just read.
Great.
Yeah. Congrats. Thank you, Chief. That was fantastic. Congratulations to Captain Smith for all of her hard work. We're very proud of you and proud to call you our own. The next portion of our meeting is the public comment portion, and so if there's a member of the public that would like to come speak, you can be allowed up to 3 minutes. This would be for a topic that is not already on our agenda later on. So if you're here to speak at a public hearing, and wait for that.
Thank you.
There's a different item to speak this about, we'll leave the time for that.
No, I put the T-shirts out of it, so that's not good. I can see the layers. Half layers.
Did you like this one?
I didn't try it. What's in it, Doc? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Could I get another Diet Coke?
Yes. Order another.
She is called it. Anniversary triggers. You know your diet coke, that's
All right, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to the business portion of our meeting. And so the first item of business is the issuance of water revenue bonds, series 2026. Before we open our public hearing, we'd like to have a presentation on the information at hand, and so we will bring up first Bryce Wilcox to have the floor. Bryce is our contracted engineer for Clinton City. Bryce?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Is there a map on there? You just, okay,
There we are.
when I pulled up the map, let me give you just a brief background for the public and council on our water bond. UDOT has 3 main projects running through Clinton City, and as soon as he gets the map up here, we'll show you where they're at. There's 2 phases on 2000 West. First one is just finishing from 300 North to 2050 North. 1800 North from 2000 West all the way up that you're living through the nightmare of right now. And soon to bid out this fall will be another phase of 2000 West going from 2050 North all the way up through to completed through Midland. And so UDOT, underneath all of these UDOT roadways, we have the city main water lines. Our main lead to the city come underneath these UDOT roads. They're a critical part of supplying our city's water needs. They're approaching 45 years old now. They're put in the early 80s. And it's time that we need to replace them, especially with UDOT's project that they're doing. They're going to be putting a 9-inch thick concrete roadway on top of the on top of our water lines. And so with that, it makes it very difficult for us to get in and maintain it. We'd have to replace so much of the roadway. It'd be very, very, very expensive to do it. So we are working with UDOT to replace our water lines as part of the UDOT projects. This will save us costs, as UDOT will pay for the surface treatments that go through it, or pay for the surface, the concrete, the asphalt, roadways, anything on top. We're just paying for the water line part. So it's a significant savings to us by working with UDOT right now to make those changes. We've known about these projects for several years now. Originally, they were supposed to be spread out over time, and thanks to some planning through UDOT and state legislature putting money into it, all of them landed back to back and on top of each other for us. And so it's made financing some of these projects a little difficult through that. So we've been planning for these for several years, and putting funding to do this. We've saved up about $4 million to put towards these water line projects. Thinking that would be enough to cover the cost of these projects. There's a map up there, you can see the blue is the first phase of 2000 West that was done. The green is 1800 North, and the orange yellow is as the next phase of 2000 West. And so we saved that, but due to the inflation, the construction costs that have happened since we started working with UDOT have nearly tripled. We were anticipating 4 million finishing this. Our portion for Clinton City on just the 2000 West project was $4 million that we had to put into it. The original estimate for some that may have been here at the time was about 1.6 million. And so it went up a lot. And so with tight budgets and inflation hitting everything, we haven't had a chance to save additional funding to put towards this. UDOT, like I mentioned, has 3 projects going on there, and then we also have a well and a booster pump that's being drilled and installed at the same time. So with everything going on, there's about a total of $18 million going into the Clinton City water system at this point in time. And working with the state with some grants that we're able to get for another phase of 2000 West. Clinton City's portion is somewhere around $10 million, and of that, we're only going to need to pull out or take out a $4 million bond to do this. So the city will get about $18 million worth of infrastructure, and we'll need a bond to complete our project at roughly $4 million. The remaining coming from UDOT's contributions, areas that they impact because of the project, like where the bridge is at, they're putting the bridge on top of our water line. So they're gonna pay to relocate that. So we have things like that where UDOT's paying for a portion. And then Clinton City's paying for the rest of it. And then we have on another phase of 2000 West, we have a grant for $2 million from the EPA to help replace our water lines on 2000 West. They'll help pay for that. So this stretch on 1800 North, we don't have any other grant options. Everything that we've got has been federal, and we can't bring in federal money to the 1800 North State project. And so we push those, deliver our money as best we can on these other phases of 2000 West. So with that, just a little bit about our bond, and then our bond counsel's here, and that he can go into more on that. So that's the need of where we're at to come up with our funding to pay for these needed projects right now. Like I mentioned, this would be drastically more expensive if we wait and do these at a future time when the pipeline's been. If we waited till UDOT was done and came back in 10 years or 15 years, our price tag's probably in the $30-40 million range rather than $50 million project. So now the time that we have to do this as a city to do it. So as we've gone looking for funding sources that ease the rates on the residents rather than doing this all at once, we've gone to work with the best terms we came up with were through the Utah Board of Water Resources. And we'll have a bond that will tie to our projects on 1800 North and to our well project that we've got going on, and allow us to use the funding for both of those. And it's scheduled to tie to our behemoths. It's kind of a unique setup. It's tied to our behemoths that we have to make to UDOT. And so for our project cost on 1800 North, we're making 4 behemoths to UDOT at $925,710. They are due April 26, October 26, April 27, and October 27. So 4 nearly $1 million payments to UDOT. And so our breakdown for the total bond comes down to, it's a Board of Water Resource bond for $3.9 million. And Clinton City has a match of $688,000. It's an 85% bond, 15% local match is what they require. They want the communities to put in some to us, so they allow us to, they want us to put in that cost. The terms of the bond, like I mentioned, are $3.9 million at 3.09% interest for 15 years. Clinton City will be required to put on deposit with the Board of Water Resources as they deposit their money, so. They'll put in a deposit, we have to put in our match at that same time, and because our payments are spread out every 6 months, they'll deposit every 6 months for that, so every 6 months. Clinton City will need to deposit $172,000 to match our bond from Board of Water Resources, so in March, September, and then again in March and September. Once our project is completed, which is anticipated in 27, we will have annual payment of $356,000 due to the Board of Water Resources every January beginning in 2028. We will also have, and for any money that's deposited in our account during that year, we'll have an interest only payment to the state during that time, and so. We'll through 26, the money that was deposited in 26 will have an interest only payment come January 1st of 27. We've estimated that around $46,000. Just going through the bond repayment, and I apologize to some of the accounts. I gave them some information last night and I got that I hadn't carried it, so I had some of this information a little different than what I gave to you yesterday. I apologize. Yeah. Pull it up here. So I can make sure I have it right. And it's on the screen is correct. I just forgot my glasses, so I'm gonna read it off my phone to make sure that I get it correct. So our annual payment is, as I mentioned, $356,000. And will require a water rate increase to cover that cost. With 7,100 connections in Clinton, we have a few more than that, we're about 7,300, but we want to be a little conservative just in case people don't pay their bill that month or collections or issues that way, we're just a little conservative on our number. It would require a monthly increase of $4.18 to make that $356,000 payment. Last year, in July, the city council raised the water rates $2.74 in anticipation of this bond payment coming up. Because we need to be collecting the money and for these payments with UDOT that we have every 6 months. We're going to use that money to make those payments. And so the council at that time increased the rates $2.74 in July 2025, which leaves an additional $1.44 increase that needs to take place on the current water rate structure to meet our bond obligation. As I mentioned, Clinton City will be required to deposit $344,000 per year with the Board of Water Resources to meet our bond amount. Our bond payment with that 418 is $356,000, so this works out that we'll use that money to match it and then roll right into our annual payments. Just for information, with last July, the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, who supplies about 80% of our water, they raised their rates for the city. And so the water rates in July went up an additional $1 to cover that cost from Weber Basin. And so that's why we saw $3.74 last July. Weber Basin has already told us that they're going to raise our rates again. So come this next July, we'll need to raise our rates another $1. At least is what we're anticipating now. We haven't got the invoice from them, so it may be something different, but so we'll have to go up at least another $1 in July in addition to our bond payment. Mayor, that's our report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, very good. Yeah, and we'll call up our bond counsel in just a minute, but any questions from the council for the engineer on the project or the background?
Mayor,
Councilmember Larson.
thank you. So the initial or our 15%, the 688, that's also covered in these increases?
Yes.
Okay, and is that where the yearly 344 times two and then our?
Yeah, so if you take that 688 divided by 2, per year, that's $344.
Okay.
Yes, so it's anticipating there, they'll also allow us to use some prepaid costs, we paid UDOT for the design of that already, we can roll those in and count those as some prepaid cost to make our first payments.
Okay.
But yes, that's the intent, to use that same $4.18, that's why we'd like to get the increase done now, so that we don't have a pinch on cash flow.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you to our engineer, and we'll ask Nate Canova, our bond counsel, to come take the floor. Mr. Canova, can you tell us any extra information about the legal issues surrounding this or the bond itself?
I can give you just a little bit, and we'll ask Bryce to stay close, because you probably have more questions for him when I'm done. So the project was initially went before the Board of Water Resources in 2024. You got approval, state law authorizes the Board of Water Resources to basically make loans to city and local governments for approved water projects. So you went to the Board of Water Resources, that project was preliminarily approved. State law also authorizes the city to enter into a loan agreement with the Board of Water Resources, and the bond that you will issue is evidence of that loan. So after today, the public hearing that we're gonna have is a condition to the issuance of the bond and the execution of the loan agreement, which is in the form of a master resolution. So after the hearing, we'll enter into, or the city will enter into the master resolution. You'll issue the bond. The purchaser is the Board of Water Resources, so they'll buy your bond. And the city will enter into an escrow agreement. The escrow agreement is where the city match dollars go and where the board's purchase price goes for the bond. So the Board of Water Resources will make 4 deposits just ahead of the UDOT payments being due. You'll also execute a bond purchase agreement whereby the Board of Water Resources will purchase your bond. But all of this was approved on the November, or via the November 12th resolution. So you authorize the future execution of the master resolution or the loan agreement, the escrow agreement and the bond purchase agreement. City manager was authorized to negotiate it with the Board of Water Resources. Mayor and city recorder will be executing that after it's done. But after the public hearing, we go back and tell the state, Board of Water Resources, that it was fully approved by the city. They have one more hearing, so they have to approve it in one more meeting. I think they're scheduled to meet on January 29th and May 18th, maybe somewhere in March. So we'll get on one of those 2 agendas, and then we'll close the bond issue after that final approval. So the numbers that you see from Bryce are all estimates. We'll have the final numbers after their final approval. The initial resolution was a parameters resolution. It actually authorized up to 4 million and up to 4%. So if the board decides to move a little bit, we can move a little bit. But his estimates, I assume, are going to be pretty near final, but we'll execute that master resolution with a payment schedule that is yet to be drafted. So you'll see that prior to execution, at least Trevor will see that. As part of closing, we'll issue a legal opinion that the bonds are legal, valid, and binding against the city. There's a tax opinion that goes along with it as well. The interest is tax exempt to the state. I think finally, as part of the resolution, it's worth noting the security for the bond is the net revenues of the city. So all water revenues of the city will be placed into a water revenue fund that will be created. You'll take out operating and maintenance expenses, and then after operating and maintenance expenses, all of those water revenues will be pledged to the state, to the Board of Water Resources as security. Included in these numbers is a reserve fund. So you'll fund over 6 years about $59,000, maybe $60,000 per year of your payments is going to go into a reserve fund. So that will also secure the state in addition to the water revenues, the net water revenues. I think that's enough.
Thank you. Any questions from the council for Mr. Knopf?
I have a question.
Councilmember Sarah.
When we first discussed this, there was talk that there was potential, or there is potential for these type of bonds to get more favorable terms. Can you elaborate on that? What is, like, what's the best case scenario the city could get in terms of these bonds?
I can't really answer that. I mean, I think the best terms you can get are the terms that the Board of Water Resources is willing to offer you.
Right.
So I think you'll know that at the January meeting.
Mhm.
I don't know how they set their interest rate calculations, for example.
Okay, like what's the best you've seen when, in your experience?
Well, I think they're sort of market driven, so I've seen like 6 to 0% interest rate, right, in like 2020s.
Yeah,
But generally, any governmental debt is gonna yield between 2 and 4%, I think is pretty standard.
so is our rate at all determined, is it all market determined, or is it any part of it determined by the city in our financial state?
Bryce, you can probably talk to that, but I'm sure you showed them forecast of water revenues.
Yeah, it's all market driven. It's not. They look at it, they don't look at your current water rate, they don't look at your city financial status. Other than looking at, can you pay it back? That's what they wanna know is, can you pay it back? They don't dive into, and as you ask them, they will not comment on whether the city is charging us water for their water. It's a purely market driven. And your rate is determined based on your entity type and your amount you're asking. All municipalities, government entities, are required to pay an interest. They throw them into that category. They take it to a market rate, and then they reduce it down to where we're at. And so what they've offered to the city right now is the 3.09%. I would be very shocked if that changes. I haven't seen them change. Once you go through that first middle, they typically stay. If there's something that crazy that happens where interest rates that they have drop to 0, I'm sure they would renegotiate with us. I haven't seen them raise it, so let's hope this isn't first time. And so that's where those numbers are typically come from. They just have a standard that they apply to market conditions. If you're an agricultural user, you can get down to a 0% loan if you have a certain amount of money. And so it's just all depends on where we're at, because we're a municipality. We're not gonna see those.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the council? Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate your help. Before we open the public hearing, I would like to add just a little bit of commentary. For context sake, Clinton City has had very little debt in its history. We last bonded to pay for these city hall complexes that you are sitting in. And we paid those off in 2017, and so it's been a while since we've incurred debt. I don't like debt, but this is something that we feel that we have to do in order to properly serve the city, and it's the best way for us that we've been able to ascertain to move forward in the interest of protecting the customers' pocketbooks to the extent possible. So with that said, we would love to hear from our public. We want to hear what you have to say about this topic, and we would like to open the public hearing. It is 7:32. Those of you who would like to speak, you have 3 minutes, and you can come forward at your discretion to the microphone and take the floor. Please say your name and what city you live in.
My name is Laura Monteris. I live here in Clinton. I just have a simple question. So they were talking if the rate does go up for this bond. So if it does go up, does that mean that we will get another price rate increase? Or is that set for a while ago?
We'll make a list of questions that people ask, and then we can answer at the end if that's okay. So
So I got another quick question. I'm Blake Montour. I live in Clinton, Utah also. We've lived here for many years and it seems like you guys know how to increase price, but do you know how to drop the price once things are paid off? Like, I would think a city of this size would have $4 million in like a slush fund. Or are we not very good with our money? Because as an individual, I have a slush fund that I have to use to pay for my bills. And you've been collecting money from us for the last almost 23 years for water. And that would be my question. How come we haven't got a slush fund for that?
Thank you, Mr. Montier. Additional comments from the public? I'd like to give it just in case you think. All right, well, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:34. And thank you to the Montiers for their questions. I appreciate that. And we'll see if we can give some time to our city manager to address some of those questions. Trevor?
Yes, so like Mr. Canova and Mr. Wilcox were saying, most likely our interest rate will stay that same. But just as if you got a car loan and your interest rate changed from one day to the next day, you would be subject to those new payment terms. And then I just ask them what those terms would be. And then assess if we need to adjust the rate that we to charge our residents.
I can just clarify, so once we execute the agreement, it's a fixed rate, so the rate won't change after final execution.
And
For the term of, for the 15-year term. Yeah.
what day is that?
Hey, come on up. Mr.
So we won't know when the bond closes until after the Board of Water Resources has their final meeting. But presumably before April, we will execute documents and lock in at that 3.09% rate. So for the 15-year term of the bond, the interest rate can't change. I think that answers.
However, I will say that because of our bond parameters, resolution at least is selected, we can't go any higher than the maximum percentage on that. Right? So we have 4% is the maximum. So if the interest rate raises over that 4%, then we would have to circle back and redo that. The likelihood of that happening is pretty low, like they were mentioning, but yes, there's that protection of the city that if it goes over that parameters resolution that we passed back in November, we won't be able to execute it at that point. And then as far as the revenue, this project as well as the 2000 West project, like Mr. Wilcox was saying, those projects came online faster than we anticipated. And so typically how we build in the rates is that we would look at the rate, look at future capital facilities needs, and then adjust the rate to build up a fund to create that additional money needed for those capital projects, similar to how you knew your roof is going to fail in a few years. Let's save some money now so that we are not with a larger impact. Those came quickly, as well as other projects like our ductile iron project that is going on, replacing ductile iron pipes and other maintenance projects. It causes that down. Historically, Clinton has been really good at maintaining lower utility rates as well, keeping them within our means and not going above that. And so that does create issues on creating a larger reserve fund to use for some of these projects that are outside of the scope of what we're anticipating. And so we're constantly looking at those capital facilities planning. We're taking, I've been in numerous meetings with Mr. Wilcox and Mr. Williams with our public works department, talking about what are those future projects so that we can start building in the rates to accommodate those, so we don't have to continually incrementally bring these changes up that we can plan for those appropriate in the future. It's a really difficult formula. Our previous city managers done an excellent job of maintaining our system. Our system, however, a lot of it is aging, and so we're coming to a point where we need to make these decisions. There is merit, just as the mayor was discussing, on doing a bond because you get today's price versus saving. If we save for this project, like Mr. Wilcox was saying, over the next 15 years, we could see that cost go drastically higher. Also, the best time to replace pipes is when the road is open, right, rather than when it's done. I remember when I was a teenager, my road got redone, and then about a few months afterwards, secondary got put in the street, and then we had a big large cut in the road, right? And we got to deal with that forever. So timing and all of those things go into effect. And so sometimes bonding is appropriate because we can get today's price, execute a plan a little bit quicker with interjurisdictional action, and then have a lower impact on the residents versus paying to mobilize an entire unit to get a major road. So I hope that helps answer some of your thoughts and questions on there. We're constantly looking at how do we balance the need to create a fund for reserve to pay for future projects versus overburdening with fees and taxes, and it's a delicate balance, and we hope to get it right, and sometimes we do well and sometimes we don't, and it's a constant thing.
Thanks. I also wanted to explain to everyone, I'm so appreciative that some of you members of the public have come tonight, and so I think it might be helpful for you to understand that our water fund is its own separate little business. It's its own fund separate from our general fund, which runs our departments like police and fire and recreation. The water fund is paid for by our monthly utility fees, right? And that's its source of revenue. So we don't use property taxes or sales taxes to pay for that water fund. We're using just that monthly utility fee. And then potentially some grant money if we can get that, or in this case, a loan from the state. But we have very few options for revenue generation in the one little water fund, right? And so looking at it in those terms, I hope you understand why we don't just build up slush funds, like it's not like we have excess sales tax revenue coming in and when there's a surplus there. And in fact, I've asked the engineer to come up one last time. Do you recall how much money we bring in annually from the monthly payments, utility payments to our water fund? Or maybe you know.
We're sitting 2.5. 2.7,
somewhere around 2.5 and 2.7 with, I think it's 2.7 with this last increase.
So that's all we're bringing in annually.
$2.7 million annually.
$2.7 million annual.
That's how much
How much does it cost for the one, if I may ask?
To operate the entire, with our facilities, our maintenance, staff, also our contract with Weaver Basin. Typically rent lands around $2.4 to $2.5 million. So we're replacing $200,000 typically towards capital improvements for the year. We're hoping to increase that because we know that those projects are becoming larger each year, but that's the approximate.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can see that Clinton's been operating very conservative enterprise fund with its water for many, many years, and so there you are, and that's why we really don't see another reasonable path forward other than this bond for this purpose. But I am so appreciative that you all came and were interested, and we will look into that next round of water fee increases. The engineer was explaining maybe $1.44 is about what we're looking at minimum to cover those payments going forward. So you'll see that coming up on an agenda before long. And you can continue to give input to us in the meantime. I hear you when you say, if you raise a fee, why don't you ever take it off? That seems to be the most common complaint that I hear from the public regarding these kinds of increases. I talked to our city manager about the potential for including a sunset on a fee increase that's directly tied to a bond payment. And we can look into that and see if it makes sense if it's an option, and we can talk about that when we consider our next fee increase for this purpose. So I do appreciate that feedback. I have heard the public on that point, so thank you. Any other questions from the city council on this topic before we move on?
I have one more question.
Councilmember Larson.
Bryce, I don't know if if this is a reasonable question, but if this bond takes 15 years to pay off, like the work that we're doing, when do we expect to have to do that again? What's the lifespan of the work that will happen that this bond pays for?
No, that's a great question. And so our term for our loan are 15 years. We can, if the city does have revenue, we can pay it off early. There's no prepayment penalties or issues that way. As for the lifespan, what we're putting on, it's a long time. I would put 50 years minimum on this. The main water line coming down, you've seen it as it's going down, as you're driven down even north, the large black pipe, it's like a long spaghetti noodle when you're out there. It's high density polyethylene. It's non-reactive to anything. And so as we're out there should not be anything that will impact the integrity of that pipeline. Some of what we faced in here, we're using ductile iron pipe, we're using some metals, now we're going to plastic, we're going with these other materials that are almost inert to anything that's out there. So our lifespan on those materials should be a minimum of 50+ years. There will be valves and fittings and other things that may require some maintenance. And so yes, we're giving it the lifespan that it will long outlast all of us here. So
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you so much, everyone. Oh, Councilmember Sure.
Bryce, sorry, before you
Sorry.
start.
no,
I just want to bring up a point that also, talking about future planning. I think it might be important to know about what planning that's taking place for the next time this has to happen, right? Is it my understanding that instead of having this buried right smack dab in the middle of this giant road, it has been moved so that the next time it's less expensive than it would have been?
yes, no, that's a great question. Thank you. We are locating our new water line. We're not going to be inside the middle of UDOT's roadway. We have to deal with traffic and deal with cutting the main road. Our new water line will be located under the sidewalk. So on 2000 West, we're on the east side of the sidewalk. On 1800 North, excuse me, we're on the south side of the road and also in some of the frontage roads that will be parallel to bridges that go across there. So, and then as we run services across the roadway, we're putting them in sleeves to people's meters so that if we have to replace a service to a home, we can slide it in and out of the sleeve without having to cut up the roadway. And so yes, we're putting a lot of thought into where things are located so that it'll be less expensive for us in the future to work on them and to maintain them. So
Very good. Thank you, we appreciate that, and now we'll move on to the next agenda item. And you'll all hear more about that water bond as it plays out. The next agenda item is ordinance 26-01, setting the time, date, and place of our city council meetings for the year 2026. So you'll see, 17, page 17. Oh, yeah, go down. Okay.
Yeah, page 17.
All right, so for the year 2026, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to start our meetings every second and fourth Tuesday with a work session. And so that's where we were prior to this meeting, starting at 6 p.m. The work session will end at 6:50 p.m. and then we'll come into this regular city council meeting. The work session is completely open to the public. Any of you are welcome to come attend at any point. It does not include public comment, but you can attend the meeting, listen, and then come right into this meeting and offer your public comment as desired. So those will occur on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. And what we will do is if there's some sort of holiday, then we might switch the date, but generally speaking, we're gonna hold those meetings every second from Tuesday. If there's some other reason that rarely that would crop up that would require us to move the meeting, then we will notice our changed meeting as a special meeting. So, All right, are there any questions from the city council on that topic? For me or for Trevor? I'm an easy one. If there are no more questions, a motion is in order.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a clarification, just so the public understands.
Yes, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you. If there are enough participants from the community that we don't fit in the other room, we'll be bringing the meeting in here, is that correct?
Oh, that's excellent. Yes, we want to make sure that we're transparent and open to the public, so we won't leave people out if they can't fit in that room. We can move into this room, yeah. We just go into the conference room because the work session has a little less formality to it in its format. And so it's easier for us to hash out issues and walk through them thoroughly with our staff in that format. But there's no reason we couldn't come in this room. Thank you, excellent clarification. Any further comments or clarifications? Otherwise, the motion is in order.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 26-01, annual notice of Clinton City Council meetings for 2026.
I hear a motion, and is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Arby and a second by Councilmember Danson. The question before us is, should the council adopt ordinance 26-01, an annual notice of the Clinton City Council meetings for 2026? And is there any discussion on this topic? Seeing none, I will call for the question. So all in favor?
Aye.
We need to do a roll call for this ordinance. Never mind, let's do a roll call. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Saying yeses and we have a mixture of ayes and yeses. All right, that motion passes and the ordinance is adopted. Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to, well, item number 3, presentation of first professional ambulance billing report. This item needs to be postponed because the petitioner was unable to attend at this time. And so is the council willing to postpone this agenda item to a future time?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we postpone the ambulance billing presentation until a future date.
Excellent. So I have a motion by Councilmember Larson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilmember Arby. This motion to postpone, I don't remember, I don't think it requires
No.
debate. So all in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. All right, thank you. And so Chief Polson, you can tell First Professional that they'll be on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Excellent. At 7 p.m. All right. The next item of business is the City Council Rules of Procedure. So this is, I'm the petitioner on this topic, and so I'll present this one and we'll go from there. The state code requires that city councils adopt for themselves rules of order and procedure. And the rules of order by state code are required to contain some sort of parliamentary procedure, some sort of expression of ethical behavior and code of conduct. And so many city councils adopt all different kinds of things and in varying degrees of detail. We have last adopted as a city council rules in 2017. And those rules have kind of loomed out there and we haven't necessarily been following them. And so I'm kind of a rules oriented person by nature. And so I thought it might be nice to update those rules and offer the council an option going forward for us to try. And so the rules before you include the purpose and commentary on civil discourse, as you see, and ethical behavior. Those are things that are very normal and reasonable. One of the comments that the council might want to address is the potential for a standard of dress. So I had a couple of people suggest that. If you would like to go that route, I used the term encouraged in there are encouraged to wear business attire for council members and participating staff. In keeping with the high-minded nature of the proceedings. And so that's an option for you to consider. It talks about our physical attendance at meetings would be generally expected, but what the council members would do if they have to miss and that they can attend the meeting virtually if necessary. Our meetings will generally be held at City Hall. Any kind of special meeting that would be held in another location would be properly noticed to the public. So otherwise they're held here. And at the times and dates as we previously talked about. The mayor's the chair of the meeting. That's a normal thing that is recognized in state law, and the mayor extends speaking privileges. People are supposed to request speaking privileges from the chair so that we can create a pattern of fairness and order in our approach so that people are not talked over and that there's not cross talking and that people feel heard and that it's fair. Our agendas, this is another one where the way it's written now, it says that the city shall publicize a meeting agenda with accompanying documents no later than 5 p.m. 7 days prior to the meeting. So this is what I mean when I say this is how it's written now is in my draft that I put before the council. Previously, we did not have that rule. State law requires an agenda to be noticed to the public at least 24 hours prior to a meeting. I have a high interest in transparency, I guess, and again in order, and so I'm recommending to the council a requirement of 5 p.m. 7 days prior to the meeting, not including the meeting day. This does not preclude the council from re-noticing an agenda if an amendment needs to be made. And so as long as the amendments are made up till 24 hours prior to the meeting, then it can be amended. But my goal is to get that agenda out there so it's not only available to the public for them to begin to read through, but also for the council members so that they have time throughout their week to walk through those agenda items thoroughly. But that's a question for the council. Would you like it to say the city shall publicize a meeting agenda or the city shall strive to publicize a meeting agenda? I recommend the former. Work sessions, it talks about their purpose being a little less formal, like I said before. Regular council meetings. We're generally employing Robert's Rules of Order. That's something that was included in the previous rules of order for the council, but we hadn't totally been following it. I took speech and debate in high school, so I kind of like the idea of following Robert's rules just a little bit more carefully, and so that this document reflects that, but it's up to the council if they like these rules. An invocation, so you see here it goes through the order of the regular business meetings. Pledge of Allegiance, which I think we could just have the chair just launching the Pledge of Allegiance. That's what I did tonight. We don't have to have somebody like stand up and give the Pledge of Allegiance because it's probably unnecessary. But the invocation, I put in for the first time rules regarding the invocation. This is best practice according to legal counsel. To reflect that it's not the intent of the council to affiliate with or express preference toward any particular faith, belief, or denomination, and that we respect everyone's viewpoints. But the council employs the use of ceremonial presentations, kind of like this invocation, for civic purposes, to offer a moment of reflection on the importance of the council's meetings, or promote an atmosphere of civility, or show appreciation for those who contribute to the city's well-being. So it can be a solemnizing message, or a prayer, or a moment of silence, or a praise, or a thanksgiving, whatever invoking type concept the person offering it believes is appropriate. And it gives some indications that were recommended by legal counsel that the person offering shall not solicit gestures such as head bowing or standing or whatever, because we want to create an atmosphere of freedom for people to participate or not participate in that. So our goal would be to invite, allow any member of the public to participate in an invocation. If we have a member who would like to come forward and offer that, they would just need to say so in advance. So they would reach out to our city recorder and ask to be placed on the agenda for the invocation. And they could offer that, and it allows up to 2 minutes for the invocation. And so council members and staff may invite members of the public to participate, and they connect those individuals to the city recorder so that they can offer proper volunteering. It needs to be all on a volunteer basis, no pressure. And the rules say that if no members of the public offer themselves for that invocation, then we can allow the city council members to just provide one if they would like, so. And feel free to interject with the point of clarification or information if you need to ask a question. So the next section is the public comment section. Prior to tonight, our public comment, the way it was written in our rules of order, required people to register with the city recorder prior to giving public comment. And we hadn't been following that practice, but I also think it was a little bit of an archaic and potentially stifling practice. And so I've written that out of this draft of the rules of order so that members of the public who arrive at this meeting could just potentially think in their mind that night, you know what, I'd like to give a comment, and come forth when notified by the chair. And so that's a change. And also that they are only required to give their city of residency. Our previous rules required that they state their full address, so those are changes. All right, and then you'll see these business items. Upon looking at this, your first thought might be, oh, this is more intense here. But really what I've done is take the similar elements from our previous rules of procedure and just explained them. And so I actually used Robert's rules to help guide the writing of this document, just to write it out a little more. And I'll flag for you the things that would be different from what you're used to seeing. So obtaining the floor, before speaking a person must first obtain the floor. That is, the person must be recognized by the chair as having the right to be heard at that time. So this is to help avoid anybody shouting out, or people talking out of turn, or people cross-talking. And this is extremely common. This is like 200 years old, best practice. And so putting on parliamentary procedure. And I saw, were you reaching Councilmember Larson to ask a question?
I was, but I'm withholding.
You were withholding, okay. Because I'm just forging ahead. All right, and then our business items would begin with communication or presentation directed to the chair and council. And I gave some examples in here because that's what Robert's rules does. It says, Madam Mayor, members of the city council. It is not my requirement that you refer to the mayor as Madam Mayor or Mr. Mayor. Those are the formalities introduced by Robert's rules, but mayor or chair or any of those things are accurate according to your desires. And so then the chair would call upon the appropriate staff members or petitioners to present. And the council members wouldn't enter into discussion or debate during this time. It would just be the presentation part. And instead they would ask questions or clarifications at that point.
Mayor.
Councilmember Larson.
Just a question, if we should include in this, for example, or i.e. on some of these statements that are examples, it doesn't necessarily say that these are just examples. And so rather than having misinterpreted that this is the language that should be used, that we just include something that clarifies that these are examples.
Thank you, Councilmember, that's perfect. Very good. All right, so. Yeah, and then the part that I wrote into this is that during the presentations part, and you'll see we did this tonight. I think that the council members should be able to ask their questions directly to staff and to the petitioners instead of through the chair. The way Robert's rules describes it and the way that many people's rules of order describe it, whether they follow them or not, is that every commentary has to be addressed to the chair. I think that's obnoxious in this case, and so I wrote in an option for presentations when you have the engineer up here or the bond counsel. That upon achieving the floor, the council members can ask their questions directly or align a questioning directly to the petitioner. Or presenter. So, and then. And we've done that already in our city council meetings, and so that's not much of a change, it's just a formalization of the change. But here's where there's a slight difference under the discussion and debate, and this is real Robert's rules, so this is the way we haven't been doing it, but it was written into our previous rules this way, is that business is brought before the council, the discussion and debate portion by the motion of a member. And so we're not supposed to enter into debate and discussion until a motion has been made. And so that sometimes requires that you make a motion like, I move that the council adopt ordinance 01-26. And then we don't know, are we planning to adopt this or not? We have to discuss it, but you're making the motion so it's very clear to everyone what the question is on the table to be discussed. And then at that point, every council member who is allowed to, or who is given the floor to speak, is allowed to speak uninterrupted. And every person who wishes to speak gets a first chance before anyone else gets a second chance to speak. And that's kind of a great way to help ensure that everybody is being heard and that decorum is being carried out. And at that point, when you're directing all your comments through the chair, which is the way that our former and current rules are written, helps prevent direct confrontations. It reduces the likelihood of personal attacks and prevents sidetrack conversations from derailing efficiency.
Mayor?
So, yeah, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you. In number 3, where it talks about the example of making a motion, does the moving council member have to make the motion whether to adopt or reject an ordinance, or can that verb be, I move that the council discuss?
It needs to be adopt or reject. It has to be an actionable item that, yeah.
And just for my clarification, how does that work if council members haven't determined a position?
Then the process of debate or discussion would lead them to reject it then, or to table it, or postpone to a different date, or to amend the motion as they discuss and realize, oh, we don't want to adopt this ordinance, we want to the way it was presented. Instead, we want to adopt or we want to amend the motion that we adopt ordinance 01-26 with such and such change to it. And do you see what I'm saying? You would make a motion that would then be voted on to amend it, and then we vote on that.
So if I'm leaning against an ordinance, but it hasn't been brought to the council, I may, for example, move to adopt it just to bring it to discussion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question too?
Oh, yes, Councilmember Sorrell.
So, I've been trying to think if I can think of an example where we've done that in the 2.5 years. I mean, I couldn't think of an example, so this is gonna be new. So what we're saying is that when we're in these meetings, and an issue comes up, before we could discuss it, we have to have a motion to either move it forward or reject it.
Essentially, I'm trying to think, and maybe Councilmember Johnson can think too, he likes to study Robert's rules. I mean,
I worry that it comes across, cause I've heard complaints over the last couple of years that there's a rush and we don't listen to other council members and we don't listen to the public, and I fear is if the start of the conversation is I move to approve or I move to disapprove, then we just further that that ideology.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the concern I have.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's because it's it seems more unusual to do it that way, but that it's the parliamentary way of doing it, which you have to get used to. But the reality is maybe you could move to, I'm trying to think if you could move to discuss something.
Say,
Councilmember Vince.
That's what, so, yeah, kind of like we're kind of discussing it a little bit right now.
We are.
When we're doing this, and that's what we're trying to avoid with this, is that we start discussing it and we start making changes and doing everything, and then it's gets to a motion of adopting something, or it's like, well, what are we adopting? Are we adopting what's written out there, or are we adopting what we've actually discussed, what's actually happening? So that's why we start with the motion. And then we get into discussions like this, and we can say, you know what, actually, I think this needs some changes, so let's, move to change some, let's amend this, let's do, like. Still go down that path, because that was, I think, the confusion people had was not so much. You're discussing all this stuff, I think it's in the end, people have discussed it, and then it's like, okay, now we're gonna make a motion to adopt, it's like, well, what are we adopting, because we just had this huge long conversation.
Right, and I think part of the issue tonight, and this is something that bothered me bringing this forward, is I would have normally, what my intent is to do going forward, is to bring this to the work session beforehand. So that's my goal, is to always bring something that's more complicated like this to a work session where we can speak more informally and hash out, and then get it to a place where it makes sense to people, so that when it is being brought to a business meeting, there isn't a confusion of like, ooh, I don't even know where I stand on this, I haven't walked through it all the way, and so that's the idea. And yeah, that, you're right, Councilmember Downs, that's what I was thinking of in terms of making clear what the question at hand really is. Councilmember Larson.
Yes, thank you. So with that clarification, what occurs to me is that the discussion and debate is really then isolated to just our vote on that issue, right? The issue is clear. The parameters of the issue are clear. The discussion has already been had about, should we do this or should we do that? And so now it's more about, if I am opposed to the ordinance or the regulation, that I have a chance then to explain to the rest of the council why I oppose this. So that's what is opened by the motioning, is that then I get to say, this has these flaws in it, I don't agree with this or that, and you have a chance to say, yes, but this or that, right? We're debating the merits of a final product rather than debating the product itself and getting to the final.
That's exactly, and that's why I'm saying I was a little irritated with myself for putting this on this agenda, just because I needed to do that with this. I needed this rules of order to go on the work session, but I also needed it to be passed early because we're having our first meeting. So yes, that's exactly what it is that what would be discussed is generally like ready as a final product that people understand what's in it, and so it's not some, oh, we're doing live editing and need to really have a crazy back and forth that would cause confusion whether you're adopting or rejecting. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mayor,
Yes.
how does that work when there's a public hearing and a vote in the same meeting? If perhaps there's a public hearing associated with a matter, and perhaps it's different on the council than it is with the planning commission. But what happens in the case, I guess, how do we show transparency and be able to indicate that we've heard the public? If we're coming to the council meeting where there may be a public hearing that may persuade us, in a certain manner, how do we address that? So that it doesn't, I'm speaking on with what Councilmember Searle is saying, that it doesn't look like we are railroading our decision making.
Totally, yes, and so my intent would be to not have us vote on a topic the same evening that a public hearing is brought before us. Does that make sense? Yes, because I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Mayor, can I
Yes,
follow
Councilor.
up there? So my understanding is every time we have an ordinance come up, we're gonna have to, so someone's gonna make a motion, it has to be seconded for us to continue.
Right.
If it's not seconded, then someone has to make the opposite motion and then hope someone seconds that. Right?
Or an amendment to the motion, it doesn't have to literally be only adopt or reject. It
But
can be different.
whatever the circumstances, we have to vote on it before another motion can be made. right?
Right.
It seems like this is gonna potentially. I don't know, I see this as counterproductive, but maybe I'm not understanding.
Councilmember Dice.
That's what it's actually, then you don't vote on it. It's just a, hey, I do this motion, somebody's like, yeah, I want to talk about it, I second it, and then it goes into discussion. There's no vote until after.
So I thought, my understanding is that if there's a motion and a second, it has to be voted on.
No, that's what, it goes into debate, it goes into
Right, it
discussion.
goes to debate, but then it has to be voted on after.
At the end, but then you could table it for later in the meeting, you could postpone it for another meeting, and so it's like you can do things too, you don't have to vote after doing that, so once you've made a motion, that just means you want to talk about it, and somebody seconds, it means, yep, this is something that others want to talk about. And then if during the discussion, debate, it's like, maybe we shouldn't actually like vote on this, then somebody can say, actually, I make a motion that we postpone this to the next meeting or something.
Then we withdraw our motion and say I withdraw and then give someone an opportunity to do another motion.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Mayor, just a point of clarification, if no one seconds the motion to adopt, isn't the motion defeated?
Correct.
Okay, so we wouldn't proceed to the discussion or debates phase.
Right, then we can't discuss it. That's one of the concerns I have, but again, like I said, maybe I'm not fully understanding.
One more comment there, I think in an earlier section, which is when I first grabbed my mic and decided not to, the language talks about the public comment period, I think, and it says that their comments are restricted to the topic that's on the agenda or something like that, if we can find that spot again. Yeah, public comment, so, yeah, during public hearing, speakers are confined to the topic for which the hearing was publicized.
The hearing.
Yeah, so we wanna make sure that in our agenda, the public hearing has specificity about the topics for that public hearing and that people don't assume that the hearing is for the topics that are on the agenda for the evening. Because we deliberately do not want the public hearing to, I mean, it can, but they should know that we'd like them to talk about something that we're gonna be discussing in the future.
Yeah, so you'll see on our current agenda tonight how there's public hearing and then issuance of water revenue, and so it looks as if the public hearing is exactly associated with the water revenue. So that's the way Lisa draws it up so that it's clear that it's that topic.
Perfect.
And we can table this too, if you'd like, and continue working on it and see if we can find a way to address the concerns about bringing up a motion prior to having any discussion time on it. You wanna?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the vote on this so that we can have more discussion and implement some of the suggestions that have been given.
Excellent, I have a motion on the table that's in order to postpone, and is there a second?
I second that.
And a second, okay, sorry, second.
And add also do it in a work session before coming back to the city council.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion, Madam Mayor, to postpone the discussion on this item and address it later in a work session to adopt the changes that have been suggested and or discuss additional changes.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Larson, and this is the second.
I will still second that.
A second by Councilmember Christensen. The question before us is, should we postpone this topic on the city council rules of procedure to the next work session? And is there any discussion on that? Postponing? Then all in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. So thank you. That's excellent. That'll be great. That makes me feel better anyway. So would you like to give any other commentary before we move ahead on that tonight? Councilmember Christensen.
I do think this is an important discussion, and I do like the idea of having our process more clear. So I guess I want you to know that I support the overall idea. I do feel like there is a little more finessing that we can do so that we understand how not to confuse ourselves and the public.
You got it. That's excellent. Thank you, Councilmember. All right. Let's move on to the next item. It's our resolution, 01-25. So this is the appointment of the mayor to the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management Board and then our other city council assignments. So we'll deal with we can deal with this actually in a single motion, that includes both the resolution and the assignments. But let's go ahead and, does someone pull that up? Okay. So the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management District Board, it's mostly made up of other mayors and then the county commissioners. That covers our landfill. And so that's a board that I would sit on to talk about a bunch of garbage. All right, so I would appreciate your consent to that appointment. And then the city council areas of responsibility. So I've been in conversation with the council members and I proposed the following things. And these are catering to the members' interests and schedules and all kinds of different things. And it doesn't preclude us from creating additional assignments as we go forward if we see that it's necessary. So we're gonna, I'm going to recommend that we continue the appointment of Councilmember Dane Searle to the Board of Trustees for the North Davis Sewer District. So he's been serving on that for the past 2 years for us, done an excellent job. He likes the sewer, and which is fantastic. And he even might have an opportunity to become chair of the sewer board, council member.
They actually decided, because we had a change, midway through the year, that they're not going to have a vote.
Oh.
And things like that. That's okay. Now.
But you'll continue serving faithfully, okay? And then I'm continuing on the mosquito abatement district. They requested that people stay for 4 years if possible instead of switching out at the 2-year mark because their learning curve is kind of scientifically intensive on that one. I do love killing mosquitoes. All right, so Councilmember Spencer Arby, liaison to the RAP Tax Committee. That's already ongoing, and so he continues on that. That'd be great. And then proposed new assignments of our newest council members who are jazzed and ready to go. I'm so excited for them. Planning Commission liaisons. This is a new one that we haven't done before. Well, we used to many years ago, but it hasn't been done in the recent times. And we'd like to, or I would like to, assign Jennifer Christensen, the council member, to our Planning Commission to attend their meetings as she feels is necessary, but to also maybe communicate to them and help them understand what kinds of things we're working on and that are of value to us and vice versa, so that we can feel better connected to our planning commission. And she heartily agreed to do that. Youth Council, I had several members interested to work with our wonderful youth here in Clinton. And so I am recommending that we put 2 council members on the youth council so that they can have more adult support and that they can be liaisons to all of their good activities. They have wonderful youth council advisors who help them as volunteers year round. So to have some extra adult assistance would be great for those advisors. But not only that, I was envisioning that these good council members would have an opportunity to help mentor some of these youth so that they could learn a little bit more about how civics works in our city, learn how our departments and processes work. Because at this juncture, they're generally more helping with our events as volunteers, but I would love to broaden that horizon for them and introduce them to some maybe deeper civic concepts and help them come before the council to report to us every now and then and things like that. And so these good council members have said they would like to shepherd that effort. Communities That Care, Councilmember Danson has agreed to be assigned to that. This is kind of an arm of the school district and quasi-arm of Davis Behavioral Health. It's an organization that helps address suicide ideation and mental health and all kinds of substance use in our youth. And so that would be a great connection for Councilmember Johnson to not only work with the youth council, but be able to create a tie-in to some of the communities that care interests so that they can combine forces. Hill Air Force Base has a restoration advisory board that they asked for a member of Clinton's selected body to sit on. That is the board that advises the Air Force with regard to their cleanup of contamination, decades old contamination that still remains in part under Clinton's groundwater and the surrounding area, Sunset and elsewhere, Clearfield. And so Councilmember Larson has agreed to sit on that advisory board, which meets quarterly. And then I talked to Councilmember Larson and council members Larson and Arabi about being liaisons to our businesses, helping with ribbon cuttings and talking to some of the chambers of commerce. There are 2 different ones that serve our area, helping create plans that would help our businesses feel more connected to the city, potentially a quarterly newsletter to the businesses or something like that, or creating maybe a Clinton City Business Roundtable where they could bring business leaders to come to City Hall every now and then to talk about issues that are of importance to them, those kinds of things. And then finally, the Mayor Pro Tempore, Councilmember Searle has done a wonderful job the last 2 years filling in when the mayor's gone. Councilmember Arby's my recommendation for that position now, and it's really a fake position because I don't tend to miss this very often. So unless it's not fake. If I be
Madam Mayor, did I say something?
Yes. I do not miss very often, but if I am disabled or if I throw a tantrum and refuse to perform my duties is another time in state code where it is warranted for the mayor pro tem to take over. Or if I'm out of town, then Spencer could fill in for me as chair of the meeting. And he would retain his voting privileges. That's the cool thing. The mayor, as if it's me, doesn't need to vote unless there's a tie. All right, so
Madam Mayor,
yes, Councilmember, yes.
that's what I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 01-26, appointing Mayor Marie Daugherty to the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management District Board, appointment expiring December 31st, 2029, and accept the proposed city council appointments for 2026.
Okay, I have a motion on the table, and do I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful, a motion by Councilmember Johnson, a second by Councilmember RB, to appoint me to the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management Board and to accept the assignments as listed. All in favor?
Aye.
We have the roll call on the resolution, just an ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
I
Thank you, that vote passes and that is adopted. All right. And last but not least, on the business items is our annual open and public meetings training. Councilmember Searle, I don't know if you're like me, but after this, I have to send reference to this training to the mosquito abatement district. Okay, so we can do that. Trevor Cahoon, city manager.
Well, and again. Okay, we are gonna go over some elements of the meetings, of the Public Meetings Act. I'm going to have Derek turn on a video, and I'm gonna interrupt the video throughout it. I'll pause it and we'll have some discussion around the video. The video is about 7 minutes long. It's a good overview, but I want to answer any questions, especially for our council. A lot of you are new at this open and public meetings. And so I just want to make sure all of your questions are answered in doing that. So I'm here for that. We're gonna watch an ad for Monday.com. So, our total office, our vision work is and know about how you do all their questions are answered, in doing that. And where does people have the meetings at? It's the state of law that ensures government action. For a while and a half, or keep in mind, it's Monday, except all laws, and start, the laws, start, we work, it's a little bit of, you'll see. And you know, how you do all their questions are answered,
So first of all, there's the portion of state code that describes the definition of a meeting, and this is what it says. And by state law, we're supposed to have our meetings in public, right? And we can't form a quorum to have a meeting, okay? So here's the definition of a meeting. A meeting means a gathering of a public body with a quorum present and that is convened by an individual with authority to convene the public body or specified body, and following the process provided by law for convening the public body for the express purpose of acting as a public body, to receive public comment about a relevant matter, deliberate about a relevant matter, or take action upon a relevant matter. So you see that its technical definition includes terms like convening it, and that you have to have an individual there with the authority to convene, that's me, and things like that. But the reality is that when you go to this other section of code, under the general provisions and the declaration of public policy, this is kind of where they make their summary statement of why they've made this code. It says, it is the intent of the legislature that the state, its agencies, and its political subdivisions, that's us, the city is a political subdivision of the state, take their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. So that's really what it comes down to, is are we following the intent of our master legislature?
Yes.
Yes, that's, I just want to give you pause in what's happening, right? Cause all of these situations not necessarily have happened here, but have happened, right? And I don't give you very many options, but they've happened where it's like, oh my goodness, I'm in part of this text thread with the mayor and so, and now they're making decisions and they're asking you how I wanna vote, and you believe that this is happening, I think we should vote this way. All of that you can do because you're not convening a quorum altogether. Now, if you were to add another person to that text thread, now it could be convening a quorum for the purposes of deliberation. Then we would be a clear violation. But we want to make sure that we are just careful in our deliberations, because there's a process, there's a reason why we make those open to the public, because the public has a vested interest in the business that we conduct.
And really, Trevor, when I tease about our master the legislature, is a stupid joke, because we really are beholden to the public who elected us, and we care about the transparency we provide for them. I genuinely feel that way, so you guys are teasing.
Yes.
Put that right.
Let's now suppose Councilmember Danson is performing a live stream on his Facebook page. To which Councilmember Searle and Councilmember Larson decide to watch. Is this an open meeting violation?
So it could be, especially if it started commenting.
Could be, especially if they're commenting, right? Especially if they're deliberating, right? Now, simply watching would not necessarily constitute an open meetings violation, but contributing to the conversation and deliberating those items, then crosses that line. One other method of convening a meeting, the two members of the council can move to convene a meeting if the mayor refuses to act, right? So that is another way that we can convene. So we just have to be really careful. 9 times out of 10, that I would say 99 times out of 100, that wouldn't trigger any alarm from the community at all. But there are jurisdictions that have had that instance where a council member tweeted, or is it still tweeting on X? I don't know. I think so. It's always in between. A council member tweeted an item on their Twitter account at the time. Another council member liked that tweet, another council member commented on that tweet. And the court did find that they were in violation of an Open Meetings Act in, this is in North Carolina. We don't want to be test cases, and so you're welcome to communicate and freely communicate. Just be aware if you catch somebody on the live stream, just watch like a creeper, or just watch like a normal person. You start interacting, that becomes a dangerous situation where you're becoming now, say, a live where people can comment back and forth and then receive comment that way. So,
Or
that's
it's
where we're-
more than one of you did.
Yes, and more than one of you, like if it was one that participated, then I think we're okay, but if we're all jumping on, it's like, oh, I don't agree with Councilmember Danson on this topic of chickens. I really would like us to have 20 chickens at each residence, and then Councilmember Larson comes on and says 20 chickens is a lot, I think we should only have 6 for every 6,000 square feet, and Councilmember Arby then just sends a smiley, laughy face.
It's a good dance.
Then we're we're having a discussion now about a topic that is relevant to the city, right? One more example, Councilmember Arby is, coming off the stage, at the Clinton Idol. He bumps into Councilmember Searle, they start talking about the general plan that's coming up. And then Councilmember Danson comes up and hears them talking about the general plan and voicing his concerns about the general plan. Is that an open meetings violation? Yes, that was pretty clear, right? It is a social meeting, but if that starts happening, if Councilmember Arby and Councilmember Searle are talking about the general plan, at that point, no open meetings violation. Once Councilmember Danson comes up, they have to awkwardly change the subject to something else. Until Councilmember Danson goes back and then dances with his family. So. Yes, Councilmember.
If they're just congratulating him on his amazing performance, that's kosher.
Totally fine, yes. And there's times that we, go out to dinner as a council, right? And that's a social interaction. And totally above board, we have to really make sure we do not turn it into a discussion on items. Typically, we like to be invited as staff, so we can just base it a little bit and say, well, that's a little bit close to that. Councilmember Searle, let's not talk about that. That's never happened. You guys have been all excellent on that.
Sometimes we're glad to not talk about it, but good.
It is really nice not to have to talk about city business all the time. I agree.
Coming back to a text example, I still am unclear about how, for example, the mayor can send information to all of us and have that not be in violation, but then it is in violation if we reply to the text messages.
It goes back to that original law that the mayor had read, right? When you're convening for the purpose of the discussion or deliberation, that's when you cross the open meetings violation, right? If it's an informational message of, hey, this happened, I'm going to let you know, similar to, the public incidents that happened this last week that I texted out to you all and said, hey, this incident happened, this fire happened, or this police incident happened. That's an informational thing. A casual comment back, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, I hope everything's okay. Again, we're not deliberating city business, but if Councilmember Larson decides like, this is why we need a new fire truck, then we're entering into a deliberation, and we still haven't crossed that line in my opinion. But the moment it's becomes a deliberation, that's when we have crossed the line, right? And so typically when you see text messages from me, I will send out information and it'll be informational, or it'll be geared towards a social aspect, like what time do you want to go to dinner tonight? Versus giving your thoughts on this item. What I would encourage in that point, and this would go for the mayor as well, I know that she would feel the same, is if you have questions or concerns about those, please individually reach back out to us. Don't reply all, start a new text thread just with us, or send a new email. This goes for email communications as well. Send an individual reply back. How I handle that in the past is I get an individual reply back, it's very cumbersome and it's funky. I will get an individual reply back and I will reply to the council and say, Councilmember Christensen had a great question on this thing. This is the answer to that question. It's still not a deliberation because it's seeking for more information. And I'm gonna give the entire council all the information at the same time. And so it's just ways that we can make sure that we're not crossing the line. A lot of these little, if we inadvertently start deliberating on emails, we're not far down the path that there's gonna be some elaborate ramification, and most of the time. One of us, either the mayor or I, will say, okay, this is entering into something that's crossing a boundary, let's make sure it's on a council meeting agenda or something we can discuss later. Any other questions about, these are great questions.
So actions and deliberations. That's good. Actions meaning votes, like your final actions, and then your deliberations, like your debate and discussion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
is there a reason why we did this training here and not in a work session?
Yes, I would like to staff trainings in front of the public, so the public and all of our staff that attend can learn with us.
Thank you.
Then if you guys don't like it, you can let me know. I think this is actually really important for the public to hear, and we actually have members of the public in attendance, and it's very cool. And people who watch online and might be more inclined to watch this meeting than a work session. So, or listen to the audio of a work session.
I think that covers most of it. The biggest takeaway I want you to come back for is just question yourself, but before you send a group message or convene at this Walmart, or like just check yourself as you're going through that process. I don't have any worries about you intentionally breaking this law. I would just hate for unintentional incidents, right? And generally they're fine, but we can get ourselves in trouble if we make it a habit of it, right? So if we accidentally violate it in some way, that's okay, just keep a record of it. But don't go like, oh gee, we're all talking, and we're already talking, so we might as well just continue this conversation. Then, okay, we're gonna stop it here, we need to bring it to the city council meeting. That's why we're already each other.
Use the time to dance. Please don't do first dates.
All right, thank you so much to our city manager for offering that wonderful training. I think we are all elevated. So, we have a couple of items, just the usuals, up for our consent, and it's the approval of the minutes and the accounts payable. You're welcome to, make a motion to move either of these items off of this if you want us to do a full roll call vote or something on the item by itself, but otherwise we can vote on it in one lump sum because they're generally uncontentious topics. Are there any questions from the council associated with either the minutes or the accounts payable? Seeing none, is there a motion? All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Searle to approve the consent agenda items. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And a second by Councilmember Christensen. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, that passes. And we will finish with our final business, which is reports or commentary from the council. And so we'll start with Councilmember Christensen. And if you have nothing, that's okay.
No, I wanted to say that I look forward to the assignments that I have accepted, and I don't have anything to report yet, but I anticipate that will change soon.
Fantastic, thank you. And Councilmember Larson.
Just want to echo my thanks to the public who came tonight and for all of our leaders and all that you do for us. That's all.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Arby.
Well, I was gonna say how excited I am to work with all of you, but I was just told we can't be friends. That's how I took that. Trevor. Yes, we're just see you on the second and fourth Tuesdays. No, I'm excited. I think it'll be a great year. I'm excited for the assignments and for the crew. So thanks to everybody for being here.
That's awesome. Thank you, and Councilmember Searle.
Just a couple things from the sewer board real quick. They just are nearing the completion of like a major relining project out in Layton, near Cherry Lane. There's a video they posted online somewhere. It's cool to see. There's a section where they had to put a sewer line above ground. It went through a canyon, so they put it in a cement casing. Assembled it, moved it with this giant crane, it's pretty amazing, it's been really super expensive project, but they finished it ahead of budget, or below budget and ahead of schedule. It's not all the way done, but it's really close, so it was kind of cool to see. And then also, there's, the sewer district does a study to see where in the system there are potential impacts in case we get like a 5-year storm or a 50-year storm or whatever. And they are redoing that now using updated data. They've been doing studies too, they do them on a regular basis, but they changed some of the studies, the data concerning like pipe resistance, different types of pipe resist the water flow different than others. And it's it may potentially have an impact on us. We've got a lift station out there and such, but they're not too worried about our area. There's been some concern about some projects in Roy and some places elsewhere in the system, but it might. And I know that once those results come in, I'm sure the Bryce and Dave will be the first to hear about it. And I'm pleased that they're doing that kind of thing, right? Because no one thinks about how many people can flush a toilet all at the same time before the water goes the wrong direction, but that's something that I think about now on a regular basis, because it can happen.
Excellent. Okay, what's the super? Thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Danson.
No, nothing, just thank everyone for coming out and sticking with us to the end here.
So true. Thank you so much. I don't have the city manager listed on here, but do you have any report for us?
No direct reports right now. We do have training coming up in April, but I just want to make you aware of what the Utah League's Assistant has. If you are interested in that, I'll get you the information here shortly. But I just want to get it on the radar now, so you're thinking about it.
Their convention.
Their convention down in St. George, so. It's a great opportunity, especially for new council to learn a lot of the basics there.
Thank you so much. And so for my report, speaking of the League of Cities, we attended Legislative Policy Committee. The legislative session begins next week. And there is heavy emphasis among the legislators on the topic of property taxes, including some bill files that have already been open regarding concepts that could be potentially problematic for cities. They sound good on their face and would likely sound good to residents on their face, but they are problematic in their practical application for a city. For example, capping a city's ability to raise property taxes to like a 5% maximum in a given year. The problem with that is just that it doesn't align with certain projects or personnel requests that a city might have, and so sometimes they need to do no tax increase and then a little bit larger one, or they just do a smaller one a couple of times and then nothing and then a little bit larger. Like there are all different kinds of ways that cities can impose a property tax that allows them to look at the bottom line for the residents. And so if I fear, and many other city officials said this, that they fear that if the legislature imposes that all cities will always just hit the 5% all the time because they fear being stifled in the years that they need more than that. Sometimes there's an overemphasis on percentage instead of like the dollar amount that is needed. So anyway, that's something to keep an eye on. Also, property tax related bill coming from our own senator, or not senator, she'll love that I've elevated her to that. Representative Karen Peterson, to require that cities put out a preliminary, like temporary operating budget that they have to pass without a property tax increase in the spring. And then they can look at an alternate budget that could include a tax increase, but they have to begin operating on that base temporary budget without one come July 1st. And so, and then also require different noticing for the public that's a little more robust than what's happened in the past. I agree with her on that. I think she's done a good job, and it was the measure that seems to have the least opposition from all of the municipal representatives. So keep that in mind if you're wanting to give feedback to the legislature. Oh, and the other one was the potential for requiring the public approve any tax increase via vote. Ballot. That can get difficult because the public is very reluctant to approve tax increases even when they're necessary. So interesting stuff there. I have one last piece of information. This came to my attention recently, and so I need the council's feedback on it. Even though it's not something that we would, I need your guidance. So last year, we had a work session in which we talked about some changes to Heritage Days. Changes to the fireworks, you might recall, those of you who were here at the time, and the timeline for that week. Our recreation director, as part of her workup or write-up for that work session, also included a suggestion to change the name from Clinton Heritage Days just to Clinton Days. And we actually didn't discuss that in the work session, but she mistakenly thought that because we approved the other things that we were approving the whole lump. And so she was proceeding thinking that we wanted a name change, but when some of us said, oh shoot, we didn't realize that that was a misunderstanding, we didn't think we approved that. So I'm asking for your guidance on what to do in this context, because she has directed her staff to produce a little logo that says Clinton Days on it, and they've given it to a few businesses that are already like the Bounce House or the golf course or whatever. So nothing's gone too far that it can't be remedied if we don't want a name change. But I wanted you to be aware and actually make your decision based on whether you really believe we should change the name, if it warrants that, or if we can do like Clinton Heritage Days as the main name and keep it that way, but then just sometimes use Clinton Days as like a nickname for it, depending on the context, or if you like a full alteration. Do you have guidance for me under this situation? Councilmember Argue.
Mayor. I do, and my counselor's suggestion right now is if we could put that on a work session upcoming. To talk about it, just back to how it's going to be on the work session. Otherwise, I don't know how you guys feel about that. It's on a work session, or do you wanna talk about it right now? On a work session?
Yeah, work session would be best, I think, just put it on there and talk about it next time.
Does that give our, oh, sorry, does that give our, if we put it on a work session for our next meeting, does that give our Parks and Recs department, is that pushing it out too far? Because I do know that people are already asking questions on Facebook, and there is information already posted on our website. So I think we could ask, to see if
Would you like me to call our rec director?
I can answer for her, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're too far, and I do feel like the change that has happened is not a major departure, and so I don't think it would cause much disruption. I think if it was, we were changing from Heritage Days to Raptor Days, that might be a little bit different, if that makes sense. And so I don't think it causes, there's some disruption. I don't want to minimize the work that's been done on that, but I don't think anything will cause any major disruption for the actual event already.
They haven't sent out like their main mailers or things that would be like the heavy printing to the broader public, so. All right, unless there's other commentary from the council, I will put that on the work session for our next meeting. Okay, all right, that comes to the end of our agenda. I'll ask if there's any final questions, comments from the council. And seeing none, so this is the thing that was written in, I'll say this, written in my thing. The Robert's rules doesn't require a motion and a second to adjourn. If it's listed on the agenda, then the chair can just adjourn the meeting. And then if there's some other reason you wanna adjourn early or whatever without using the agenda. So I'll do that now just for funsies, and then you guys can tell me later if you like that, we'll formalize it in the rules of order. Alright, and that way it lets me use the gavel because the Robert's rules said to do a tap of the gavel, which is like the greatest joy of my life, because it's been sitting here staring at it. You ready? Alright, this meeting is adjourned. What do you got? You've got more than that. I don't know. I know. It sits here, nobody ever uses this, I was like. Too hard. I just feel like
I am done.